I'm Chris Bussing. Welcome to my channel. It's committed to helping more people experience success in tech sales and ride this wave to more fulfillment and freedom in their life. Who better to talk to today than one of my personal friends, one of the OGs who started out as an SDR with me at Oracle over 8 years ago, Jeff Bryant. Super pumped to have him. He went from being an SDR into inside sales. He's done field sales. He's led teams. He's really done it all. And he's even gotten his master's degree, invested in other organizations like Toastmaster, a public speaking group, to really take his professional and personal development to the next level. So we're going to talk about that, really going deep to maximize your career in tech sales and some of his lessons learned along his 8-year journey. So if you guys get value out of this video, of course, make sure to hit the like button because the YouTube algorithm loves that too. And we'll show this video to more people who could benefit from the message. And subscribe to the channel for weekly videos and inspiring interviews with guests like Jeff. I've got your back with value every week. So let's dive into it. Jeff, thank you for joining me, man. How are you doing today? How's your day been?
Thanks, Chris. Happy to be here. Having a great day.
Yeah, man, this is going to be fun. And we're going to start off the conversation with some good vibes and just thinking about the benefits of a career in tech sales. It brings so many things like financial freedom and entrepreneurial skills. But one of the biggest things it brings in my mind is meaningful connections. And I'm thinking of our friendship, our bromance. You know, the thumbnail for this video is a picture of us back in the Oracle campus in Burlington, arm in arm with our Oracle badges. And it's just so fun to be able to meet great people. And you even met your wife at Oracle, and you're getting married coming up in Miami this month, and I'm going to be there. It's going to be amazing. So I guess I'm putting words in your mouth, but can you talk about some of the benefits of tech sales, maybe starting out with the relationships that it's brought into your life?
Yeah, it's a great question, and more than happy to start with really the impact at a personal level. I think tech sales is a great opportunity. One, a great place to start your career. Two, it's a great place to build meaningful connections at the personal level as well. You really get exposure to a variety of people with differing backgrounds when you first start out. A lot of us started off as a sales development representative. So with that, you're forced into a class with a lot of people, and you get to know people from a lot of different backgrounds. And oftentimes you make a lot of meaningful friendships. Like you said, we've been friends for 8 years now. We have a lot of mutual friends who we've met over the years throughout sales. It's a very outgoing profession. So you're really going to not only work as a team in that role that you're in, but you're also going to get to work with a lot of great people, and you're going to make friends along the way.
Do you remember Tate Ewing, by the way? He was an SDR on my team. Did you ever meet him?
I do, yeah.
So Tate is at AWS now, and I'm going to be meeting up with him on Thursday for happy hour, and he's in Austin. So it's just amazing to see how these friendships that you could build like 8 years back in your initial job can really stand the test of time. And there's something about connecting with someone in a working context when you're grinding, because the SDR role, it can be a grind, don't you think? But going through the bumps and bruises and the victories and the ups and downs can really bring it together. And what are your thoughts, by the way, on the reality of the SDR role? Because I mean, I kind of alluded to it, but it's not all roses. It's not like the easiest job, but I'm curious to get your take on what it's all about and what it's like.
Yeah, I think looking back, when we first started, things were a lot different than they are now. I would say the role has definitely evolved to cater towards really selling through a digital landscape. Since the pandemic, a lot of SDRs have had to shift on how to be creative to not only schedule customer meetings, but really find new opportunities, build new pipeline. And that requires a certain set of skills that you didn't necessarily need when we first started back in 2015. A lot of what we were doing was kind of cold outreach, mainly through email, through phone to get those Oracle meetings. And now you have a plethora of tools today through a digital landscape, through marketing, through LinkedIn, that you're able to not only build brand awareness for whatever product you're trying to sell, but also through getting meetings and building connections. Because now people are working remotely more than ever, and you have to build those connections through a digital channel. And oftentimes it's a lot harder to get in contact with that person over email, over the phone. So it really has evolved into an interesting role where you start to see kind of a marketing aspect going into that sales development role, as well as building out a digital footprint that otherwise you didn't necessarily need to succeed. But now it's almost a prerequisite going into any kind of development role like that and hoping to grow yourself or grow your career in sales.
Yeah, that's a good point. And especially the marketing component becoming more and more important in a virtual landscape. Now, like in person, it is amazing how powerful it can be to create a sense of intimacy with someone. And that sounds so funny. I don't mean like the romantic sense, but you know what I mean. You know, you can connect, you can get to know about them, and it's easier to follow up and get a meeting. So I've noticed that moving into the account executive role, being a closer, going out to networking events, going to community events and shaking hands has led to a lot of great opportunities, especially a company like Bespin, where I don't have the Oracle brand or Google brand to flex like I did before. And so I don't know, you're in field sales right now, right? And you've led teams, you've done the SDR role, you've really done it all. But now you're back in the field in a great patch. And have you found that whether it's like in person or like warm introductions and finding like creating warm contexts, it has been the most effective way to get meetings versus like cold outreach?
Yeah, I would say that still is king, especially in the field. Building those relationships, getting those warm introductions, whether it's someone from your company or someone with the customer that you've been able to establish a relationship with and trying to grow your presence within that particular account, that's definitely key. And it still really rules. And even in the age of digital selling, I think it's super important to leverage your influencers, leverage your champions within a particular account and grow from there, definitely at the field level. If you, as you work towards inside selling, I would say it's not as important. It's still very important to have those relationships and have those introductions. But a lot of what that business development inside sales role is to expand the footprint. And that often requires a lot of outreach to connections that you don't necessarily have a relationship with, right? Because you're trying to grow that relationship, grow that footprint from a business standpoint. Where in the field, you're also trying to do that from a strategic standpoint, but you're also working to really nurture and grow relationships. And on the other side of the coin, where it's more transactional, you're actually trying to kind of expand your net, expand your outreach, which will require a little bit more of a cold outreach. But still, I think at the end of the day, building those strategic relationships are important at any level. It just really varies depending on what level you're at.
Yeah, I've noticed going up into the higher levels, it's been all about getting creative to build a network. Like now, when I look at companies, I'm like, who are their partners that I might have access to that I can talk to them to learn a little bit about the nature of their relationship with the company versus before I'm like, let me just go right to it, smile and dial, which also can be powerful, right? Like interrupting someone's day with a cold call is annoying to them, but it's a powerful way to, if you're socially aware, obviously to make something happen that wouldn't otherwise. But thanks for your perspective kind of on how things can vary based on where you're at in the stage of the journey in your career. And so when it comes to getting started in this path, one thing I wanted to ask you is how do you know if tech sales is right for you? And maybe the other question is, how do you know if it's not the right fit? Because it's not necessarily for everyone.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think that really requires a lot of introspection in terms of what you're looking to get out of your career. A lot of people who choose to go the tech sales route, and it's a growing profession as we've, still are encountering a technology boom, whether or not you want to see that with the current climate, the last couple of years, we're still in that phase and it's becoming a growing profession. If you look at any kind of report over the last 2 or 3 years, it's constantly appearing as top jobs across LinkedIn. And if people want to go in that profession to make a lot of money, be comfortable, and make a decent paycheck, and that's kind of what they want to get out of their job, then a lot of people go that route. However, a lot of people go into the technology field because it's something they're passionate about. They enjoy learning and talking about tech and really getting their hands into the latest technology and understanding how it works and how to then reciprocate that back to a customer and sell that product. They get a lot of enjoyment out of that and a lot of purpose out of that as well. And then you do have people who maybe are on the fence. They're not really sure what they want to do, but really starting a career in sales in general is a great way to really start building some skills that you otherwise maybe wouldn't have. So people who go into that third bucket really are kind of exploring whether or not this is a good fit for them. And I would say for those who are maybe still trying to figure out whether or not this is where they want to go down in terms of long-term career, I would say really evaluate kind of what you want to get out of your career. If you want to experience growth, if you want to experience challenges, and also be paid for your efforts, tech sales is a great place to go. But if you're maybe looking for something a little bit different, then explore other options. And that's kind of one of the benefits of also being in tech sales. You get exposure to so many different companies that you partner with, that you work with, that you serve, as well as your network. After you've been with, like you said, companies we've been working with for 8 years now. We have a great network of friends and connections that we can leverage to figure out where we might want to go later, or we've seen some of our friends go in different directions from a career perspective. So it does open up a lot of doors to not only making a decent income, really challenging yourself, but then it also allows you to possibly pursue other careers down the road if that's something you're interested in.
Great point. And I know that one of my SDRs, Lena, she was analytical mind, and she's like, don't necessarily want to be an SDR anymore, or go down the sales track, but she did well enough as an SDR and built enough of a network to be able to land a job as an analyst. And then she got into operations. And I saw another girl, Kate Krug. Kate, actually just ran into her in Austin, of all things. She's in Toastmasters, a public speaking group with us, which we need to talk about more later, because I would encourage anyone out there to really invest in their communication, public speaking skills. But Kate went into an operations role. So have you seen that, like, the SDR role, and particularly it'd be good to get your real world experience at Oracle, is one of the most flexible starting points to navigate to other paths?
Yeah, I would say it definitely could be a launching pad. And one of the caveats I would attach to that response is you have to equip yourself also with the right skill set to get you to where you need to go. Like I've seen, growing your career at a technology company working in sales, you do have to continually sharpen your skills and add to your skill sets to grow, whether it's from a leadership perspective or from an individual contributor perspective. You constantly have to really evaluate your skill sets and expand on that, and learn what new skills that you can equip yourself with to get to that next level. So I'd say, just like growing your career in sales, you also want to look at growing your skill set outside of just being an SDR in that role, especially if you're interested in branching out into a different role or a different career. You want to evaluate kind of where you stack up, what skills you do have to bring to the table, and where there are potential gaps that you might have, and what you need to do to bridge those gaps to get into that particular role or go down that particular career path. So it's a great starting point because you get exposure to a lot of different businesses, depending on what vertical you might be aligned to, what industry you're working in. And from there, you can really learn a lot about how a business runs and how business operates. Technology is the backbone of any business. And when you sell technology, you have to sell to entire business units, different departments. So you get a lot of exposure to HR, marketing, analytics, right? Even the core tech backend of the business. So that role gives you exposure to a lot of different roles, a lot of different positions that otherwise you wouldn't necessarily have exposure to, being 1 to 2 years outside of college. So you can use that experience to kind of shape where you want your career to go and what skills you need to add to get there. And in doing so, you also open yourself up to a great network of customers and contacts that you do business with, who can also help guide you and provide guidance, along the way, to help you make a decision on where you ultimately want to go career-wise.
I've heard it said that the SDR role or sales is the single best career you can start in, especially if you don't know what you want to do, because at least in the tech sales space, you learn about tech, like you said, that's the backbone of any business. You learn transferable sales skills and people skills that will make you better at any type of job. Like if you're going to be an engineer, but you're good with people, that's a huge plus.
Yep.
Right? If you're a teacher, of course you do need to be a good communicator there, but sales skills can help you there. I had a lawyer who spent 10 years in sales, and it made him a better lawyer. And one other thing that you hit on is that you do get to impact your income. Like you can put in more effort and focus and be more successful and elevate your income, where in other roles, you maybe it's more comfortable and stable, but you could be far and away the best performer. You could be going way above and beyond, but you still get paid what you get paid. So, there's just so many reasons why, especially for someone who has no clue what they want to do, diving into tech sales and SDR is a great opportunity. And I wanted to ask you about your experience at Oracle, because Oracle is a great name to have and a great company. You've stuck with them. I navigated over to Google and Besta now, and we've seen a lot of our peers make moves to other companies, and then I've seen others like you stay there at Oracle. Like, what drew you to Oracle, and what has been your experience and some of the things that have also kept you there?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thinking back, I knew Oracle is a good company with a good brand. It's a great place to start a career, and it's one of the first places I applied to when I was entering the last semester of my fourth year at UVA. So I knew that was definitely a path that I wanted to go down. Technology was beginning to really become a main focal point in the economy. And I knew that this was going to be a great place to start my career. And I was going to learn a lot of skills that I didn't necessarily have going into that particular role. I didn't come from a hard science background as a major. So I knew I was going to equip myself with a new set of skills that was going to make me more marketable to employers down the line. Ultimately, I ended up staying because I was constantly introduced to new opportunities for leadership and growth. And ultimately, with every opportunity that was opened, I jumped on that and was able to have a good experience and get leadership experience out of that and continuing to grow in the current role that I'm in today. And I would say with any tech company, especially in the last couple of years, a lot of people have seen there are a lot of challenges, there are a lot of changes. Things are constantly being moved and orgs are constantly being restructured, and that is part of the job, right? I'm sure you experienced that too in a couple of the companies that you've been at. And
Yeah.
I think it's, definitely part of it, especially now where tech companies are trying to essentially right size to kind of combat the place that they're in right now with the current technology economy. So that's going probably to be more persistent going into, the rest of this year and into next year. But now people have gotten used to that and they've expected that. So as a result, staying with a particular tech company, you can kind of foresee the changes that might occur, and you can kind of adapt where you need to adapt and make changes.
Yeah, and thank you to the folks who have showed up live for the conversation and the people that will show up in the future as this floats out into the YouTube sea. She said that the pursuit alone of tech sales, because she hasn't broken in yet, and she's honestly been pretty picky. I'm like, I could connect you to different folks, and she has a specific criteria of where she wants to be and what she's looking for. She's a masseuse by day. And I think she has like highest level certification, which is pretty cool. But she said the pursuit alone of a job in tech sales has made me a better massage therapist, no doubt. And yeah, actually, we got some other comments, Jeff. And this is the best when we get some comments and some questions. But we do have Parker. He's an AE, but they're actually closing his department. Hey, do you know anyone hiring? Well, the thing is, like, I remember at Google Cloud after my first year in Google Cloud, they eliminated our inside sales work, and I was able to navigate to a different role. But do you have any advice? Like, we were going to talk about how to get in with no experience, but for someone who is an AE, and I mean, this happens. This is literally a part of what we sign up for, to have face ambiguity and have companies go through shifts and then have to pivot. Like, what would your advice be? And hey, if you know anyone hiring, like, hey, we can follow up, Parker. But any high level advice on navigating this situation?
Yeah, I would say to Parker, I'm more than happy to connect offline and kind of help with that situation. It's tough to hear, and I'd say a lot of people are going through that. And one of the things a lot of people can do, whether you're in sales right now or you're trying to break into tech sales, is really looking at how you can market yourself and really doing more of a self-awareness check on the skills that you have to offer today and how you could essentially use those skills for a new job in sales, or if you're breaking into sales, your first tech role. And what I've seen in the last couple of years is I've seen a lot of gravitation towards really becoming a specialist in the role. I think technology sales is great because you work as a team and you often work with a solutions engineer or an architect who will assist in a sales cycle. And as a team, you'll work with your manager to do a lot of those, strategic transactions. However, now what I'm seeing is the need to not only be that closer, be that quarterback for an account and in that closing role, but you also need to equip yourself with a set of at least a foundation of technical skills that are essentially required and expected now. So if you were to go into, for example, a field that's more of like a data platform and you're selling a data platform, you really need to know everything around that platform and how it works versus just knowing that platform inside and out. You really need to expand the scope of what you think you know, what you need to know, and really understand the whole technology ecosystem of that product and how it works with other products. So when you do that, you're really equipping yourself with maybe going out and getting a new certification and a technology that you don't necessarily sell, but it maybe works with the technology that you use today. So
Yeah.
Oracle often, connects and integrates with a lot of, third-party platforms. And in doing so, if I'm a third-party seller and I work with Oracle and it's one of our largest partners, I'm going to really understand Oracle and what it has to offer and what that business value is. So then I can incorporate that into my selling. And that's kind of taking your selling to the next level, because you can stay at that level one of just knowing your product inside and out, knowing your customer base, but really enhancing your skills is understanding kind of where your product fits in to that customer ecosystem, because that product is just one of many in a customer portfolio that they depend on day in and day out. So really understanding that next level and equipping yourself with the skills needed to get to that next level, whether it's taking on some more classes or just doing some YouTube or LinkedIn learning after work, and understanding a little bit more of the landscape that you're trying to break into, or that you're trying to find a new job and it's for a particular company that maybe is in the customer service area. Really understanding what is the tech out there, what are some of the certifications that people need to use certain customer service software, and understanding how all that works and how all that really fits together into the ecosystem can help you set yourself apart in an interview with a company that is going through tens or dozens of applicants, and they're looking at how is this one person going to differentiate. That's one way to differentiate yourself, is to really expand what you think you need to know about a company and know the competitors, know the partners, and know how it fits into a solution within a customer. That will really increase your chances of getting to that next level and potentially getting a new job.
Yeah, really thoughtful advice. And Parker, again, I encourage you to connect with Jeff on LinkedIn, connect with myself. The number one thing you can do is to have the courage to ask for help, which you do, and connect with people in the space, build a relationship. They're connected to opportunities. All opportunities are tied to people, right? And also it use this as a unique opportunity to get clarity on where you want to be, because you're going to end up in an even better spot than you are today. You're selling FDA compliant software. What if you could get to Oracle selling a data platform? Data's the new oil. What if you could sell an ERP, these monstrous solutions to big enterprises? Go to Snowflake, data security. You actually have an opportunity to pivot maybe into a new spot that's an even better boat to row in with a bigger upside. So connect with people, get clarity on where you want to be, and also be creative. I've heard stories of folks really researching, preparing like a professional, as I say, and looking at a company like Snowflake, learning the product, learning about the case studies, and then sending a video pitch to the hiring manager, or cold calling a hiring manager or VP to show them that, man, like, I know how to sell your product already. Of course, I'm going to want feedback on how to improve it, but I already have an idea. I know someone who did that and got a job at Snowflake, and the hiring manager was like, "You sell it better than my current employees." So again, there's no silver bullet, but just a few ideas in addition to what Jeff shared. So thanks for showing up. And Parker said he sent an invite over to both of us. Jeff, I wanted to ask you about selling at Oracle. My gut and my experience at Oracle, and this was the same way Google Cloud Investment, is you're really a quarterback. You're selling such breadth of solutions. There's so many problems you can solve. Oracle is so massive and such a brand that you truly are quarterbacking like different resources versus selling like a pinpoint SaaS solution that solves a specific problem for HR. Could you speak to what it's like to sell for like a monster enterprise company and like the nature of like strategic selling?
Yeah, I'd say anyone who's in an enterprise sales role selling a breadth of solutions understands what it may be like to sell at Oracle, because we do have a lot of solutions that cover a wide landscape in the technology ecosystem. And when you're in this role, you really have to take on a strategic outlook on how you can best support, whether it's an existing customer or a net new customer, because you have to understand their business, and then you have to understand the Oracle products that you're selling, and then you have to understand how those products can create value for that business based off of what their needs are, what their business model is. So using that formula, you can really understand where your best bets are within that particular account based off of what you have in your bag to sell. You can really understand and get to know the needs of that customer. And that starts with research. It starts with really understanding if it's publicly traded or not and how much access to the information that you have, but doing your best to understand kind of how does that business run, what technology do they use, do they use any existing technology that we have today, what are the possible upsell opportunities for that, what's the roadmap for those products, and what will be our recommendation, right, based off of what they own today from our perspective. And then we can also look at other competitors also within that customer base and then understand how can we compete with that particular competitor, or where are some gaps that we know we can address based off of just the pure functionality of what we have to offer from a product standpoint. So there are a lot of different avenues you can take when you're looking to analyze. And the popular phrase we have is analysis paralysis here, because there is so much data, there are so many turns and different decisions you can take. But really, you want to take it at one step at a time. We've done a great job, and a lot of different companies have done a great job verticalizing their sales force to really pinpoint towards industry pains and serve industry needs from a technology standpoint. So we've been able to do that here as well. And being able to understand what's going on in the industry will help you at a 35,000 foot level, how we can cater from a sales standpoint, and then going down and drilling into a 10,000 foot level with each account, understanding how you can cater to them, understanding what their needs might be and how we can create value. And then you go and find those particular champions or stakeholders with projects for improvement or projects for existing products that we have today, and really building that relationship. Kind of going back to the relationship piece is really reaching out to them, understanding how we can support them, building that relationship to understand what projects they have slated and where we could potentially fit in from a business standpoint. That's kind of where I've seen the overall focus of a selling role here shift, is you are taking that strategic approach. It's not necessarily the old school approach anymore, because the market for SaaS, IaaS, and PaaS is only widening, right? Each day there's a new player that comes into the market that potentially has a chance to compete with the enterprise solutions that are currently on the market today. And so you have to think about that, where that wasn't necessarily the case 20 years ago. So knowing that there are plenty of players in the space today, that's another layer that you have to think about and you have to accommodate. And that goes back to really supporting your existing customers, providing the best possible service that you can, understanding and aligning what you can do from your standpoint, from a seller standpoint, with the products that you have and the resources that you have at your disposal to help them get to where they need to be. And that is really the golden recipe that you can almost have in an enterprise level, is you're that strategic quarterback, which levers to pull and how to get the customer from A to B successfully. And at the end of the day, if you can prove that and you can show the customer that you have the resources and they trust you to get them from A to B, you're going to win sales cycles. But if you can't do that, or you can't show that or prove it, you're going to lose sales cycles to people who can do that a little bit better.
Are there any books or methodologies that have shaped your structure to get customers from quote unquote A to B? Meaning closing deals, like, are there books or methodologies that have shaped you? Like, at the end of the day, I know a seller needs to develop their own authentic style, but I'm curious.
Yeah, there are a couple that come to mind. I can't remember the titles of them, but we've had several trainings, Sandler being one of them, a lot of impactful trainings to equip you with the selling aspect of the role. But there are a couple of different books that really break down the fundamentals of selling, but not necessarily just from a selling aspect, but from a business standpoint and what businesses need to really operate and succeed. And once you understand kind of what your customer base needs to essentially get to where they want to be, from whether it's a publicly traded company who aims to grow their revenue 2x by a certain year, or if it's a private company that's looking maybe to grow through acquisition, understanding those different dynamics will help you become a more informed seller and become a trusted advisor to those particular customers. So there are a lot of different books, and there's one that comes to mind. I don't recall the title of it. But essentially the book, it was in my master's program that is recently completed. And the goal was essentially identifying a jobs to be done. So those of you who are familiar with this particular book will know exactly what I'm talking about. But the job to be done is essentially not selling a product or a service, but identifying what particular job a person or a company needs and being able to provide that job and sell that job to them. So it's not necessarily trying to sell them a new shiny product. It's understanding what exactly they need to get done and what they're trying to achieve and what they need, and figuring out if the technology that you have will meet those needs and help them essentially achieve that job to be done.
So once you come up with that book, you're going to have to text me and I'll put it in the description of this video. Sorry, I got a cough, so I've been trying to mute myself while I was coughing. But could you speak a little bit to just changing gears, landing a job at a company like Oracle? I know we've got some account executives on the line as well, but particularly like if you want to get your foot in the door, maybe you have no experience or coming out of college as an SDR, you want to land that role, any high-level tips specifically as it relates to the Oracle process?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'd say depending on where you're at, if you are someone who is in college or you've just recently graduated and you're still trying to figure out what your next step is, going the sales development route is definitely an option to get into not just Oracle, but to a lot of the large tech companies that you see out there, right? And I would say LinkedIn can be your friend in terms of building those connections. But if you're really looking for jobs that are available, if they're on LinkedIn, you're going to see a lot of applicants. It's going to be very competitive. That job could have already been filled by the time that post has been up a couple of days. So sometimes people see that and they may get discouraged. So one thing I always like to recommend to people is to find companies that you're willing to work for, that you want to work for. And if you're in that entry level role that you're seeking, first job right out of college, and you're unsure of kind of where to go, start building and reaching out and finding someone who could potentially mentor you through that process. And that often starts with finding people at the company who may have gone to the same school that you did, or you may have a mutual connection, reaching out to that person, understanding how that person got into the company, and then building a relationship, whether it's from a mentoring standpoint or just an occasional, hey, I'd like to pick your brain on what I could do to make myself a more competitive applicant. Those conversations, I've never encountered someone who's not willing to help even a complete stranger when it comes to helping that person land a job at that company. So that's an option for graduates or recent college grads who are still trying to break into tech sales, going that SDR route and finding relevant connections at that particular company that will allow you to break in. And then those who maybe are trying to consider a switch into sales or have SDR experience, and maybe they took a different role in marketing, but they want to get back to tech sales. I would say people love to hear about skills that are beyond sales. So if you have marketing experience and you have depth there from a role that you are a marketing manager and you understand email marketing very well, or if there's a certain skill that can tie back to a tech sales role, I would say recruiters and managers would love to hear that experience and how that experience can differentiate you from the pack. So just because you may not have direct sales experience, but you're somehow connected into a product that you might be responsible for selling. So maybe you worked in HR for 10 years and now you're like, hey, I'd like to go and go into tech sales, where there are a lot of HR software companies out there today who'd love to have someone who knows the ins and outs of that role. And you can relate that experience back to selling to fellow HR partners. And that is something that is very valuable and it's a rich skill to have. So if you have that, don't discount yourself, because it's a great skill to have, especially from a selling standpoint. And then I would say those who maybe don't really fill any of those buckets, I would say there are great courses out there, especially some free courses that will give you the technical skills that you need, whether it's selling foundations through LinkedIn, or it's YouTube courses, or courses that give you a free certification, such as Google, that often gives you certifications in certain technical aspects. Really equipping yourself to show any kind of company that, hey, I don't have the experience, I didn't major in computer science, or I don't have tech sales background, but here's what I've done in the last 6 months to make myself the best candidate that I can be for this role to break into tech sales. And I think presenting that story, showing the work that you put in, is really reflective of what kind of employee that person might be. If that person is putting in the effort to really broaden their skill set, add technology skills, add selling skills to their resume, and they're able to really communicate that to a recruiter or hiring manager, you're going to increase your odds of getting into or being able to break into tech sales.
Really great, thought-provoking ideas on how to break into tech sales, whether you're just at a college, you're someone transitioning in your career. And I like that you mentioned highlighting other skills that can complement what you're doing in the job to present a holistic picture of how you can contribute at a company. And I'm thinking of a few folks, including Des out there, who has marketing experience, and that's a great thing to highlight. And she did say, by the way, congratulations on your master's completion.
Thank
And
you.
I mean, Jeff's killing it. Master's completion. He's getting married in Miami coming up, and I can't wait. And there's other things that he has done to go above and beyond, like invest in Toastmasters, and we're both in it together. It's a public speaking group. And I remember I'd always love his talks. He had such composure, always so prepared, true professional. He gets the master's degree. I'm trying to think. I feel like there's one other thing that you did. Oh, yeah, you wrote a book, right? So we're going to talk about some of these things as well. And we'll probably round out the conversation talking about what it was like to write the book, what it was like to get the master's and the lessons learned and things like that. But I did want to double click into one thing before moving there, which is when you're actually interviewing at a company like Oracle, just a few tidbits, like based on what the actual interview experience is like. And I can think back to my SDR experience, and I got a question like, oh, you've got a leads list and you've got some greenfield, meaning there's no Oracle investment, they're just on the competition, and some install accounts. What do you prioritize? Or you might get, tell me about your greatest weakness, tell me at a time you seek feedback, stuff like that. Why Oracle? So any tips on like navigating the actual interview process to land a job at a company like Oracle?
Yeah, I would say the process obviously changes from year to year, and it's definitely changed from when I first started back, 8 years ago. But I would say for the most part, the core ideology that we look for when we're interviewing is essentially understanding how this person is going to be a contributor and how that person essentially will prove to us, how they're going to be successful in the role. And that goes back to understanding day in, day out, how that person would structure their day and be able to overcome challenges that are often seen in the tech industry and being able to be successful after going through those challenges. So we like to get a picture of who you are, your background, but also what kind of employee do you intend to be, and essentially showing and highlighting, here's how I would go about this role. If I were to start tomorrow, we want to understand, how are you going to go about the role? How are you going to attack the territory? How are you going to set yourself up for success? Understanding a couple of those essentially plans, if you will, because everyone has a plan when they get into the role, then it's completely different after a couple of months. However, we want to see that thought process because that will really give us an idea of whether or not that person is going to be a good sales rep, but also going to be successful in the role. And that's what we care about. We want you to be successful in the role. So you could have a plan, but maybe that person may have a couple of gaps in terms of how they would execute. But then if we see someone who shows like, hey, here's my plan, here's how I'm going to execute, here's how I'm going to be successful in the role, 30, 60, 90 days, a couple of months into the role, like that's what we like to see. It's not necessarily all about the numbers and the successes that you may have experienced in a previous role. It's really how you're going to set yourself up for success in this role.
I love how you say we, because I mean, Jeff has hired people and he's managed people. So he really has a great sense of what it takes to make a good impression on a hiring manager. He's done it as an SDR. He's gone through the interviews himself, but he's interviewed people. So it's really a treat to be able to talk with someone like you, Jeff, that could give us an understanding of what a hiring manager looks for. And just to finish this thought out, like, are there any like interviews that you've conducted or candidates you've worked with that really stood out to you that like left an impression and you like will never forget it? And kind of putting you on the spot here, but that'd be interesting to hear. Like any unique things that you saw that worked.
Yeah, that's a tough one because there are a lot of people in my career who stand out, and I would say one or two have really demonstrated just a immediate understanding of the role. Oracle and any tech company that you enter, whether it's SAP, IBM, Google, Salesforce, AWS, they're large organizations that can be very hard to navigate. And it can be hard at times to onboard in those organizations because of the different things that you need to do. There's a lot of independence that you have in a sales role, but there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that independence. So you really have to be your own coach in terms of getting yourself through the things that you need to do on a daily basis, a weekly basis, and a quarterly basis. But in doing so, I would say that you have to understand where you want to allocate your time and where maybe it's not a great use of time in terms of a day-to-day basis. So people who've been really successful or stood out in my career have been people who have understood, hey, I know exactly what I need to do. I'm going to go in, I'm going to go do it. If I need help, I'll let you know. And then the other side of the coin is people who maybe need guidance initially. So a couple of standout rock stars that I've seen in the past are people who they get it, they know how to divvy up their time, they know the responsibility, but they're totally okay with the independence because they understand the role inside and out. And I think that starts with before you accept any job, really getting to know the team, getting to know the people you're going to be working with, getting to know your future manager, and understanding what it takes to be successful before you start that role. You could have accepted it, you're excited, you're going to go take a 2-week vacation, and then you're going to come back and figure it out. But it's really great before you even accept that offer to do some homework, do research on, okay, if I'm going to get this job, what do I need to know? What do I need to do to be successful once I start? Because that day is going to come where I'm going to be in that role. And then now I'm expected to produce, right? The expectations have been set. I was hired for a reason. So therefore I need to know what I'm doing. And it's a lot easier to go into that and make that transition when you've really done your homework, you've reached out, you've picked people's brains in the organization, even leaders or successful reps that have been in the organization, really understanding what do they do to make themselves successful, right? And being able to replicate that those are just a couple of things that you can do to differentiate yourself and enable success right when you get into the role. Because I've seen people who have done that. They've taken that initiative, right? They're not waiting for someone to tell them what to do. They're going out and they're kind of failing as they go. But that's really the best way to learn, especially in sales. You're going to face a lot of rejection in that role, and being able to be comfortable with being uncomfortable and going through some failures will ultimately enable you to be successful in the long run.
So what I'm hearing is come in with a plan. That's what hiring managers are looking for. Be proactive and go. You get a job offer, you want to be ready and already thinking about how am I going to hit the ground running and get to know the team. Spend some of your personal time learning and going above and beyond to know like this is what it takes. And so just that initiative really resonated from what you shared. And you hit on a key thing, which is in sales, you're going to deal with failure and rejection. And I'm curious, how have you dealt with that? And did it hurt and sting a little more when you started as an SDR? And it might have been the case for me versus now. Have you definitely developed more thick skin? Or I just love your thoughts on dealing with rejection and failure in sales.
Yeah, I'd say for people who might be going through that right now, it definitely gets better, as you know, right? You do develop a thick skin. Uh, it doesn't necessarily hurt like it did initially because when we first started, you didn't know kind of what. There's a lot of learning lessons during that first year, and you didn't know what rejection really felt like until you experienced it several times. But over the years, you learn how to avoid those situations of maybe having an embarrassing rejection. You equip yourself with the right understanding of who you're talking to and preparing for a conversation and being almost able to qualify, whether or not this particular lead is going to work out or not. Right. And in doing so, you kind of protect yourself from that, but you're still going to face it. But at the end of the day, it's the role, and it does allow you to build a thick skin for life, where you go through these challenges, you go through these rejections, and you kind of mentally become tough when it comes to selling, and you get used to it. It's just part of the role. And that's something that I would say if it's still uncomfortable for you, then maybe, it's something that you want to think about and kind of say like, was this something that I could see myself doing 20, 30 years, right? From now, there's a lot of things that go into that decision. But I would say the number one thing a lot of people cite for exiting tech sales is because of that uncomfortableness with rejection. So getting over that, understanding that's just part of it, but then also really trying to set yourself up for success as many ways as possible. So you're still going to face that, but if you do the right things, you prepare, you understand your market, you understand your customer, you understand your products, you're going to minimize those occurrences.
What a great insight. It just kind of illuminated for me too. I experience less rejection in my career now, and it's because I learned how to target the right customers. Like what a lot of the rejections could be just reaching out to the wrong people who can't make the decision on your solution, or they're not the right type of customer who doesn't actually have a need. They don't have the budget. So if you can get laser focused on what the ideal customer profile looks like and spend more time with them, and also foresee the types of objections and roadblocks that could come up, you can become truly a sales ninja and dodge those rejections, but also have thick skin for the times when you flat out get a brutal rejection and deal with it. And it's funny, Jeff, I had a author, Anthony Iannarino. He wrote The Lost Art of Closing on the channel. And one of my buddies, Joe DeMember. Did you ever meet Joe DeMember? He's still at Oracle. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, and he's crushing it in apps, and I told you, he won Rep of the Year. And that book really shaped him. And Anthony shared a story about his most brutal rejection. And he's like, yeah, my girlfriend, when I was younger, flat out said, my mom thinks you're a loser. My sister thinks you're a loser. I think you're a loser. And that's why I'm breaking up with you. And he's like, for about 15 minutes, I was, it bothered me. And then I met Debbie. And so he was like, he's kind of funny, but like, that's actually a really harsh, brutal rejection. But one point he made too is that in sales, it's hard to truly get rejected. It's mostly like they're rejecting your offer, or like maybe the solution, but it's not personal. Have you found that you've been able to separate your personal self-worth from things like people, like a rejection, or even like your performance over time?
Yeah. Over time, you start to build that separation and really not taking things personally, because once you really understand what you're selling, what the product can do, and if a customer tells you, hey, like we want feature XYZ and you guys don't have it, that's something I don't take personally. And if we lose that cycle because we don't have that particular feature or function and it's just not in the cards, then those are the sales cycles that are ultimately part of the game. And there are certain things that you can do, but there are certain things out of your control. And once you understand that that's just part of the role, you become more comfortable with really those rejections that you face, or the lost cycles that you can't get back, or maybe you second guess a negotiation strategy or tactic, and really knowing that those are all factors that go into a sales cycle. And at the end of the day, a customer could leave a role, like a particular champion could leave that role, and then you totally lose the cycle because of nothing that was in your control. And so you have to accept that there are a lot of different factors, and don't necessarily put the blame back on yourself, because again, there are a lot of different things that go into a sales cycle. So understanding that and going back to your point, trying to minimize those variables in a sales cycle will help you be more successful and help limit those pitfalls of rejection, but they're still out there and they're still part of it.
Yeah. Well put, my friend. And Des says, Jeff is really thorough. Greatly appreciated. I agree. I noticed you have such thorough answers. So thank you for sharing that insight with us. And Salvador says, congrats, Jeff, on your master's and upcoming marriage. So we got some good vibes coming. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for showing up. And we'll finish up talking about three things. And this conversation has been too much fun. And I feel like I see 12 minutes left, and it's the type of conversation we could go a long time, because I'm full of questions for you. But let's talk about Toastmasters. Why did you get into Toastmasters, and how has it shaped your career? Like, why did you get into it? What is it all about, and how to shape your career?
Yeah, it's a funny story. I had someone who was sitting beside me one day. I said, "Hey, what are you doing for lunch?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't have any plans." He goes, "Okay, come with me." And that particular person we both know, but he courted me into the Toastmasters that day. Had no idea what I was getting into, and there's free food, free lunch at the time, and I sat through a meeting, and then at the end of the meeting, I found myself signing up for Toastmasters, and continued to be a member and ultimately became president of that organization at Oracle. So
Hey,
that's how it got started. It was literally just, I was just thrown in literally in the deep end and I had no idea. I never heard of Toastmasters. Public speaking was something that I was comfortable with. I'd done quite a bit of it, but I didn't understand that there was a public speaking organization where I could come on a weekly basis and continue to really sharpen that skill from a public speaking standpoint. So that's how I got involved. And I recommend anyone who can join an organization like Toastmasters. Doesn't necessarily have to be that organization, but public speaking in general is a great skill that you still need, even though a lot of meetings are now held over Zoom. There's still a lot of value in becoming a good public speaker and becoming a confident public speaker, especially in tech sales, because people are leaning on you. They're trusting you to provide them with the answers to their questions, the information that they need to make a decision. And if you're not able to do that in a very proficient manner, then that could essentially come back to bite you in a sales cycle. So I'd say public speaking is great, but also any kind of professional organization that your company currently offers membership to, or that's maybe in your community, is definitely a good way to build connections. Chris and I have everlasting friendships from Toastmasters, and that's where we met a lot of our current friends. And I'm going to a wedding in September for a friend that we got to know each other through Toastmasters. So it's a great networking opportunity, but it's a great way to also build your skill set and really surround yourself with people from diverse backgrounds and differing opinions. And it's just a great opportunity, especially when you're starting your career out.
if someone's signing up for Toastmasters and participating, clearly they're trying to better themselves. So there's a good chance that they're going to be the type of person that will elevate you. And like you said, there's quite a diversity of perspectives. I found like we had I thought we had a diverse group and people really did bring different ideas to the table, and I grew a lot from it. And I noticed that a lot of famous CEOs, authors cite Toastmasters as a part of their development. And the CEO of my company, who used to run Samsung Open Innovation, buying companies on behalf of Samsung and their corporate VC, and now he was just named global CEO. He was CEO of the US business and just absolute inspiration. Retired at like 30 something, but he continues to work. And he says Toastmasters really shaped his success. And he's a great speaker, and he's like, guys, it's on the house on our company if you sign up for it. So there's definitely a rhyme and reason to it. Is there anything else you would add in terms of Toastmasters? Like it maybe like one nugget you learned? That's a hard question because you probably learned so much and mostly learned just through doing and experience. But was there any particular aspect of communication that Toastmasters improved for you?
Yeah, I'd say as a leader, over communicating is something people think they shouldn't do, but you definitely have to. And you have to do it in a selling role as well. You almost need to over communicate deadlines.
Yeah.
Right? You need to over communicate what your product can and cannot do. You need to over communicate expectations, go live dates, project plans. So you need to really learn how to be an efficient communicator. And that just starts really with, again, Toastmasters, but also just you can watch a couple different videos. TED Talks are a great source of information with how those speakers learn how to give a TED Talk. That is an art in itself. And that's something that they train themselves on how to do before they go on that stage, and learning how to pause. And really what's super important in the role and in any professional role is learning how to ask questions, but also be a good listener. We're always anticipating on what to say or how we're going to respond, but being a good listener and really taking good notes in any kind of sales meeting, or if you're, again, just having a mentoring conversation and you have all these questions that you want to ask and get the answers to, knowing when to take a step back, take a pause, really understand what that person might be saying or what that customer might be saying, and being able to digest that and then be able to respond and then have a thorough follow-up question afterwards. I'd say that's a super important communication skill that oftentimes we don't necessarily leverage as much as we should, but it's super important. And it's something that you really have to put into practice. Like you said, you can watch a TED Talk video, but you really have to practice a lot of these things to really become proficient at it. And I would say communication is something that A lot of people like to put on a resume as they're proficient in communication, but backing that up is a whole different story. And what I've seen from a successful sales rep career, multiple people have been great communicators. They've over communicated. They've been able to communicate through text, phone, email, LinkedIn, on Zoom. They've been able to cover all those different channels. And that's really what it takes if you really want it to be successful in a sales career.
Over communication, that's a good reminder even for me as I'm thinking about an event I'm hosting coming up tomorrow with some AWS sellers and a couple opportunities that I'm managing. And you reminded me, Jeff, like over communicate, different channels, tell them what you need to tell them and tell them what you told them and tell them, yeah, I don't know if there's a third one, right? I think a mentor told me that. So great reminder, great nugget. And let's talk about, again, a few more things, your master's degree and kind of, again, what called you to invest in this, what your experience was at a high level, of course, and some of your key lessons. And then we'll talk about the book, which is really cool as well. So the master's, I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, I'd say point number one, I've always been a continuous learner, whether it's taking classes that weren't associated with my master's, and ultimately, going back and doing a program that allowed me to still work, but also allowed me to build a lot of meaningful connections in the classroom and also virtually was a rare opportunity that I had to take. So certainly thankful for the program that I completed at Brown and really the connections and the skills that it gave me to really further my career and continue to learn things that you've been a working professional for almost a decade. You think you know certain things, but you're always challenged on those beliefs and then how you essentially maybe run your team or run your territory. There were great learning lessons for me to kind of grow my existing skill set, but also challenges to, what I thought was the right way to approach certain things and really gaining feedback from my peers was ultimately one of the greatest takeaways of that program. But I would say for anyone evaluating whether or not to go back to school, it's something that if you have the appetite for it and you're able to do it from a financial standpoint in terms of securing the funding to do so, then I would definitely encourage anyone who's looking at a program, especially if you want to differentiate yourself down the line. You want to make sure that you're setting yourself up for promotions, whether it's a specialized master's or an MBA, or even I'm seeing a lot of masters in data science and business analytics, people who are further equipping themselves with data analytics skills, because that's going to be probably a main job requirement for a lot of roles out there, especially in the tech industry. So I would say if you're on the fence about going back to school, or maybe you want to have a goal down the line of going back, definitely write those goals down and write down the path that you need to help you get there. There are oftentimes a lot of steps involved in kind of writing out, if I want to be back in school in 2 or 3 years, what are the things I need to start doing today to ensure I get there? Not waiting 2 years and then deciding, okay, I'm going to go back, right? I'm going to go back full-time, part-time, online. There are a lot of different ways where you can further your education. And if anyone's out there who wants to talk about it, I'm more than happy to.
Yeah, Jeff is such a great resource. And I mean, I had a full blown conversation with him about, myself considering a master's. So, he's extending a branch and I definitely take advantage of that. He's the man. So thank you for that, Jeff. And finally wanted to talk about the book. What's the book called? What's it about? And what were some of the lessons you learned? I bet you grew a lot from writing a book. That's not easy. That's a huge project.
Yeah, I would say the book's called Press Play, and it explores the unknown origins of technology symbols. So a lot of the symbols that we're familiar with that we see on a daily basis, such as the play button, pause, rewind, power button, and then a lot of different emerging symbols that we're seeing today, whether you see them on your phone or on the remote. The book explores really where they came from and how they became so mainstream. And it's a quick read, but I would say it was something that interested me during the pandemic. And I really wanted to leverage the time that I had at home where there wasn't a lot going on. It's like, how can I capitalize on this moment that could be a once in a lifetime opportunity? So I decided to sign up for a course at your alma mater, Georgetown. And
Yeah.
the professor there, Eric Custer, was able to walk us through how to write a book in a couple of weeks. Really, it was kind of a crash course on how you could essentially set up a framework to write a book in a certain amount of time. And over this month, or over the span of 6 months, I was able to produce a manuscript. And then from there, it took almost a year to actually get from that manuscript phase to the publishing phase. But it was an unforgettable journey. Definitely thankful I went down that route to publish the book. It was always a goal of mine. And I would say in doing so, I learned a lot, met a lot of great people, got to be on Zoom with Steve Wozniak from Apple, Simon Sinek who's also a great
Wow.
speaker and author. So I got to connect with a lot of great people in that program. And at the end, I had a book, but that was just the actual product. That was the finished product. But I had gone on this journey that I otherwise wouldn't have gone on if I hadn't have signed up and taken a risk to pursue a lifelong dream.
Wow. So you met Steve Wozniak and Simon Sinek. Like,
Yeah.
was that just you through your book, or was it through
We
the
were in a
program?
group. We were on a Zoom. Yeah. So it was more people, but it was still it was an intimate Zoom session where we got to ask them a lot of interesting questions, and he took questions from the audience, both of them. And it was, an unforgettable experience, right? I took screenshots so I could
Wow.
say like, hey, this is
That's
me and,
awesome.
Steve Wozniak. But it was a great experience, right? Overall. And that's another thing where I think only like 2% of people think writing a book is worth it. And I would say it's a lot higher. It should be a lot higher than that, because going through that experience, you really learn a lot about yourself, and you learn about, it's almost like starting a business, right? Writing a book is almost like starting a business, because you have to figure out your brand, your marketing, how you're going to promote the book, how you're going to structure, what's the cover design going to look like. And a lot of that can get lost, and people end up deserting that goal of writing a book, or they have a business idea and they end up walking away from that idea because it can get really challenging at times. And there were times where I wanted to walk away. I was like, I'm not going to be able to finish this, right? I ended up writing 20 or 40, 30,000 words. And I ended up, many times wanting to walk away because I didn't think I could do it. And at the end of the day, I had a great network and a great program to push me through. And I would say that's true for anything that you're trying to achieve, whether it's trying to break into tech sales. You have Chris here, who's enabling a lot of great people to break into that industry. Or if you're trying to make a change into tech sales, you're trying to get promoted and grow your skill set. It starts with really surrounding yourself with great people, great employees, great mentors and managers, and really using that wealth of knowledge to help propel you to what's next.
Dang. That's the note to end on right there. Very inspiring. And Des, again, thanks for the positivity and all the comments. She said, Jeff, we need to connect so I can finish some books. I think she had some novel ideas. So I encourage y'all to get connected. There is something to be said for having the grit to get it over the finish line. And Jeff, you definitely inspire me, man. It's so cool that we go way back and we have that picture on the thumbnail of us at the Oracle days starting out early on in our career. But to see like what you've achieved and that you really are fulfilling on your truest potential, and then, found, the love of your life, Alex, along the way. It's just so happy for you, and it inspires me, man. So like, I want to write a book eventually. And one thing I relate to is I have a course, Tech Sales Accelerator, that I got to get done. And it's, it's not the same as writing a book, but I totally relate to what you're saying. So I'm encouraged. I know the audience is encouraged. And as calls to action, I encourage you guys to connect with Jeff on LinkedIn. And I linked his LinkedIn already. However, I also encourage you to check out his book, Press Play, right? Is that correct? And where can you find the book, by the way?
Yeah, you can find it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
Amazon and Barnes & Noble. I'll link it. Again, I'm just confirming Press Play, right?
Yep, that's it.
Okay, cool. And is there any other calls to action that you can think of before we sign off?
Yeah, I would say, be curious, be inquisitive, right? If you're wanting to go into tech sales, or if you're contemplating reaching out or connecting with a recruiter or someone that's in the space that you essentially want to break into, don't be afraid to take that step, because in doing so, you're starting off one of the first lessons in tech sales, which is you're being okay with rejection. The worst thing someone can tell you is no, not interested, right? So once you accept that and you're willing to take that leap to get to where you want to be, that's really where I would recommend anyone would start, because very seldom are you going to have someone come to you with the opportunity for a raise or promotion or a job. It's oftentimes you taking a leap of faith, if you will, to get to that next level, to get to that next job, that new career. And it really starts with just being curious and reaching out and, taking that step.
Cheers to all y'all being curious and taking large leaps forward towards your dreams. Really, your dreams are available to you. It's a pretty abundant and giving world. And with people like Jeff in your corner to help model the way and lift you up on your journey, I mean, that's a blessing. That's a gift. So Jeff, thank you for being there for me. Thank you for showing up for the audience today. Thank you to the audience and the 3 people that have stuck and gone the whole distance with us. Thank you for your time and attention. And to those who will check this out in the future, of course, give the like button a love tab so more people can see the video and benefit from the message. Subscribe to the channel for weekly videos with inspiring folks like Jeff. And I'm telling you, this will not be the last time he's on the channel. And a website's coming out soon. And Jeff is a part of what I'm calling the Mentor Network, a group of inspiring people that can lift you up on the tech sales path. You guys, just have a wonderful night, and cheers to your success in tech sales and in life. Happy selling and happy living. We'll see you in the next one.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Jeff.